Hello and welcome to the City of Cedar Falls Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. Call the meeting to order, and can we get a roll call, please?
Chrisman.
Here.
Grebovich.
Here.
Hartley.
Here.
Holst. Larson.
Here.
Leeper. Lynch.
Here.
Moser. Here. Saul.
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum. So first agenda item is approval of minutes. Any questions, comments, motions?
So moved. Second.
All right, so vote.
Aye.
Aye. Same sign if disagree. All right, thank you. Sorry, a little rusty here. Next agenda item is public comments. This is for anything that's not on the agenda if the public would like to talk about. And I do not see any takers, so we will move on to old business. First item in old business is to hold a public hearing for rezoning lots 5 and 6 of Midway Business Park. And who is taking this?
I have got this, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. We had briefly talked about this at the previous meeting. The Midway Business Park is located down off of Green Hill Road, just at the Waterloo city limits. This property was originally zoned R1, and because of its location along a busy street, it was recommended it be changed to an R4 that would allow both residential and then certain commercial uses such as offices and so forth. At that time, the neighbors in the subdivision, and you can see the Lovejoy on the location map. There were some neighbors that were concerned if that Lovejoy Drive was supposed to continue through to Green Hill Road, and so as a way to come to a compromise, they put a cul-de-sac on that, and then the new development came with the street off of Green Hill Road, which is Green Hill Lane. As part of that rezoning, there was both in the deed of dedication and a zoning agreement that restricted these lots to R4 or where is it? To professional offices on those lots. And so that agreement was put into place. The first development in the subdivision, First Security Bank, I think owns had owned the entire property. They built on lot 1 and 2, which is right there at the corner of, does this work? Is that showing up? I don't know. Okay. At Green Hill Circle and Green Hill Road. And then in 2015, the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa built their headquarters there. In 2018, there was a zoning change approved by council, and this is identical to what's going on tonight. They did a zoning agreement amendment to allow assisted living on the 2 lots in the corner. I think it's lots 7 and 8. And that has been successful, so Oak District, who owns that, would like to do the same on lots 5 and 6. They have submitted a site plan that shows the building will be very similar to what's on the currently on the other properties. However, this one will have a little more parking, but they don't feel that parking is really, the assisted living people don't have cars, so the parking is more for staff and for visitors. And this is a rendering of what the current building looks like, and again, the new building will look very much like this one. The total area of the 2 lots is 1.9 acres. The zoning agreement that has been an amendment has been taken care of. We just have not gotten signatures, but that's something that'll have to be, they'll have to get those signed and back to us. I've talked with, and I don't know if he's here, I talked with the petitioner about making sure those got signed by all the property owners, so the Community Foundation, the bank, as well as he would sign to agree to the amendment to the property. We did mail letters to adjoining property owners the first part of September. With this, staff makes a recommendation to approve RZ 2203, the request to amend the zoning agreement for Midway Business Park Addition to be used for professional offices, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, subject to the following conditions. And this is specifically for lots 5 and 6. they'll need to provide that zoning amendment agreement was signed by all the property owners, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Would the applicant like to speak to this item? Come up to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Luke Moore, 8206 West Ridgeway. I had a little hiccup on the printing of the format, so everybody had signed. I got the proper formatting back to them, so signatures should be back this few days for everything for the First Community Bank, or First Security Bank, and then the community foundations.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone from the public like to speak to this item? I see none, so bring it back to commission for discussion or motion.
I would move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Roll call vote.
Any other discussion?
Any other discussion?
Chrisman?
Aye.
Yurevich?
Aye.
Barclay?
Aye.
Holst?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Moser? Aye. Saul?
Aye.
All voting aye.
All right, thank you. So that would move us on to the next item of old business, which is a zoning text amendment. Petition for City Council to amend parking requirements in the Downtown Character District. This is a public hearing. And who has this? Karen?
I'll just make a few comments. Of course, we discussed this at your last meeting. This is a petition from the City Council to amend the parking requirements in downtown, the Downtown Character District. The first part of that is they have requested your consideration to delete all requirements for shared parking in the ordinance. The second part of it is to increase the minimum parking requirement for residential, for multi-unit and mixed-use buildings from 0.75 spaces per bedroom to 1 space per bedroom. As you recall, you did consider both of these similar petition back in January, had some discussion and recommended, at that point in time, the ratio was 0.5 spaces per bedroom, and you increased it to 0.75 spaces per bedroom. But at that point in time, had recommended denial of the petition to eliminate the shared parking. There has been quite a bit of discussion still about the shared parking and the requirements and how that's going to work. And so council has, again, requested your consideration of just eliminating the shared parking and allowing that to be voluntary instead of a requirement in the code. And then along with that, some of the council members also voted to recommend 1 space per bedroom for the requirement. And that would be on-site parking. So with that, staff just recommends holding the public hearing and making a recommendation to City Council for each of these items.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? Please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Craig Fairbanks, 405 Spruce Hills Drive, Cedar Falls. I actually come in support of the recommendation to remove the shared parking and revert to 1 space per occupant. I have a few items that I have problems with. Having been in the real estate brokerage business for 45 years, I've not ever seen the amount of treading on private property rights that this represents. It's like, where does it stop? You know, are we going to do it with businesses here? Is it going to go citywide eventually because we've set precedents? That seems to be the way things go. It's been brought up that that shared parking arrangement, that if people who walk across the property to get to their cars and park there, that the liability would go on to the property owner for that and be treated just like a city sidewalk. It's not a city sidewalk, it's private property. City sidewalks are not on people's properties. They're actually an easement that is shared with the city that the homeowner maintains, and that is written in the ordinance. I'm surprised that there's not more opposition to this. I missed my opportunity, but it's been brought back, and I was happy to see that it happened. It looks to me like it has an opportunity to do some spread when we set precedents. And then I question, if I don't use my driveway, all of it that's required by the current code, and that I'm required to have a certain number of spaces, will I be asked to share my driveway with a neighbor who has excess cars? That may sound silly, but this sounds silly. I just request that you take that under consideration and maybe think about it. I'm not as concerned about the parking downtown, that's their issue. But the shared parking issue is a real problem for a lot of people, basically because of possible expansion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbank. Does anyone else from the public like to speak to this item? I see none, so we can bring it back to commission to discuss.
So one thing I thought since our last meeting, right now it's 0.75 parking spaces per bedroom and 0.25 spaces shared parking, right? So that's equal to 1. So what if a developer under the current rules comes in and says, well, I don't want to do shared parking, or I can't get that worked out? Could they not just provide 1 parking stall per unit or per bedroom as required by to get the total parking requirement and do it and not actually have shared parking? Does that make sense? I mean, that would be an option, right?
So the shared parking, the way it works right now is there's several different options to provide the shared parking. You get credit for any on-street spaces that are in front of, adjacent to your lot. Or if you know somebody in the vicinity within walking distance of your building, say somebody's not using. So there's only a certain period of time that you need shared your parking. Right now, the way the ordinance is written, it's, I believe it's, you have to share your parking 12 hours out of 24, but only 8 of those hours need to be within certain business hours. So depending on what you're using your building for, you could say make it available to the public during a portion of the day, and for the rest of the time, you could have your employees or your residents parking in those spaces. So you can have it on your site, you can count the on-street parking, or you can make an arrangement with another property owner that's not using their parking during a portion of the day and lease their parking spaces to count toward your shared parking.
Right, so that shared parking could be provided by you, is what you're saying.
Right, but it doesn't, yeah, right.
So I mean, we're not putting anybody in a situation where they can't meet the parking requirement because they can't acquire the shared parking or that type of thing, right? I mean, they have the ability.
Unless you don't have enough space on your site for it, right?
Right, but I mean,
So-
you have the ability to control that yourself, in that manner, so.
And again, I just want to make clear, we have not had any complaints about this, correct? Outside of, I mean, from business owners, I mean.
Not that I'm aware of, not that have publicly come up, at the meetings, the
Yeah.
public meetings.
I guess I have a question. Why are we even discussing this? Because if we vote to pass these two, according to the mayor's email to us, he's going to veto it. Why are we even having this discussion then?
I don't know all that was in the mayor's. I think he was referring to what council is discussing right now, which is the 2/3 majority vote that's required.
Not just the parking thing?
Right, I believe, but I don't want to put words in the mayor's mouth, of course.
Well, that was disturbing.
I was going to say, my My take on this, and I've struggled with several items in the new zoning for downtown, and this is one of them, because I do value property owner rights, and I don't want to have to be told what I can or can't do if I'm going to build a commercial building. But then on the other hand, I do understand that parking is a logistical problem downtown, and this could be a solution to help alleviate that. And to kind of echo on Mr. Fairbanks' comments earlier, that I kind of rationalized it by, if I build a single-family home in the city, I have to put a sidewalk out there, and I have to pay for that, and I have to maintain it, and the city can use it, or the people in the city can use it at will, and I'm liable for it. So, but it brings a quality of life to the community to have sidewalks everywhere, and I kind of looked at it as a small burden for a development to add some shared parking in there. I mean, organically, some shared parking's happening downtown right now anyway. So, like I said, I could debate both sides of that, and I had to pick a side, and I went for it. I guess I'm trying to explain my rationale for it, so.
Well, I think we did debate both sides of that ad nauseum when we went through this zoning code proposal initially. And, you know, I don't know that we have anything to gain or likely to change if we were to revisit all those same conversations in the same nature. I personally maintain an attitude that aligns with the parking study that was paid for to be done, that parking isn't that big of an issue. And you know, as anybody grew up with learning the lessons that you can't have your cake and eat it too, if we want a thriving downtown, you know, fan the flames of what's already happening. If parking were that dramatic of a problem, you know, laissez-faire thinking would cause that to not be a hot spot. If you want parking and plenty of it, and are willing to pay the expense for having that, looking through the lens of laissez-faire thinking, you need look no further than College Square or Crossroads Mall. And those are commercial sites that have plenty of parking, and they're not hot spots where everybody wants to be. And the only reason I bring that up is because it seems to be a refreshed conversation. I remember saying something to that effect originally, and the parking seems to be one of the motivations for the city council change. And the idea of shared parking, I think it's just a sort of concession to the argument that we need more parking, just to try and reach a compromise of sorts. And so I have no reason not to stand by the decisions that we made previously as a group, and sort of dig our heels in if we need to.
Yeah, I guess, you know, I had mentioned before, I mean, as I look at it, the amount that the ordinance is actually going to require shared parking seems to be very, very small. And so it's like, well, you know, on that rationale, I could rationalize, well, let's just eliminate it and not mess with it, you know, and move on if that's what the council wants to do. But I guess I've been kind of persuaded by kind of the other discussion with other commissioners that's like, well, you know, it's something we want to do and it hasn't even been tested yet, so, you know, why don't we just keep moving forward? Because I think the idea of the shared parking is a really strong concept, you know, potentially to be used downtown. So, you know, I guess my feelings are, we made that decision a while ago, and I'm not really willing to, I don't see a strong enough argument to change it at this point until we get a little further down the road, I guess is kind of where I've ended up landing.
Well, and for a little context, to repeat something that came up at the last meeting, we might be making a mountain out of a molehill, because how many areas are there that would get bulldozed and new constructions in that specific character district?
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Right.
Yeah, and if there were to be, it would be major, and you know, being subject to some rules that were, or some rules of engagement that were widely supported at the time that they were conceived, would be no surprise to somebody considering doing something, I guess.
And I think we've discussed some of the checks and balances that we would like to see as a commission, so that when these things start to be put in place and we see buildings being built, we have asked to review and make sure that it's working as we expected. And we've made it very clear that we want to hear those things, and if changes need to be made, we're willing to make them.
The only problem I have with that is once a building is built and then we have a problem, how do we fix it? So I guess I'd rather hit it up front than afterwards. I don't understand why voluntary shared parking is a problem. I think that's how it ends up anyway, because not everybody, current properties do not have to share their parking. They can if they want to. Is that correct?
Right, anybody can share
Right.
your parking.
Right. We're talking about people putting up new construction and adding residences and usage. So if they meet their requirements, but they have to add enough for shared parking. So this is for new projects, right? Okay, so if I already own a building downtown and I have 10 parking spots, I'm not required to share those 10 unless I choose to. So that's voluntary anyway. Okay. I am concerned about us moving forward and not making this decision, because 2 or 3 buildings go up and we have a problem, then what do? You can't fix that. You can't go back.
But we're talking about a hypothetical problem. We haven't got to the point where we know if this is a problem or not. And the only way we're going to know is if buildings go up. And right now, this is more of a matter of opinion. We have gone through and discussed it and said, these are the pros and cons, and we weighed them, and we're trying to make the best decision. We've heard from the public. We've had the parking studies. We've done the work. And now, you just, at some point in time, you do have to move forward and accept that sometimes mistakes are made, but we continue to do work and learn from those things. And this is one district, and we will learn from this district and continue to improve our code throughout the whole town. I mean, we're not acting on this flippantly. We're making a smart decision and having discussions and trying to put forth our best effort. And that's, I think, why we're on this commission. And I think that's the purpose of this commission.
Any more comments? Motion?
I would just like to, I'll put in a motion to move it forward as is with no changes.
I second that.
So you have to vote make the motion in the affirmative. So you'd have to make the motion to approve the ordinances as the petition, and then you can vote the opposite if you choose to do so. But there's a reason that the motions always have to be made in the affirmative.
So
So-
is that a real motion then? Because no.
She-
Okay.
Yeah.
But yes, to a motion, a yes would make the changes, a denial would keep it the same the way we originally.
We're also, I believe, not required to make a motion. Is that correct?
That would be correct as well.
Okay?
But I'm good with that.
So any more discussion, comments? We ready to go to a roll call vote?
So there's not a motion on the table yet.
Right.
Oh, but I thought you didn't have to need a motion.
Then you wouldn't vote. You can't vote without a motion.
It's not an affirmative. It has to be an affirmative.
So an affirmative motion would say, yes. Why don't we vote on one of these one at a time? So for the first, is there any motion for deleting all requirements for shared parking?
So I would move the motion to delete shared parking. Yes, in the downtown district.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we've had a motion and a second. Any more discussion? That will go to a roll call vote.
Okay. Chrisman,
Nay.
Grebevich,
Nay.
Hartley,
Nay.
Holst,
Nay.
Larson,
Nay.
Lynch,
Nay.
Moser,
Nay.
Saul.
Yes.
That motion fails.
All right, so we still have more items within here.
So the motion would be for moving from 0.75 spaces to 1 space per bedroom per unit.
I'll second.
Who seconded it? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Leanne?
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Chrisman,
Nay.
Grebevich,
Nay.
Hartley,
Nay.
Holst,
Nay.
Larson,
Nay.
Lynch,
Nay.
Moser,
Nay.
Saul.
Yay.
Okay, both motions fail.
Yep, both motions fail. So that ends our old business, and we move on to new business. First item in new business is a partial easement vacation for 3718 Apollo Street.
Yes.
Who has this?
That would be me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the first new item for today is to vacate a portion of sanitary sewer easement for the address 3718 Apollo Street. So as you can see, this is located in Pheasant Hollow 7th edition. The marked red boundary is the property. Some little bit background about this property is an RP zoning district, and the subject property is Lot 10 and portion of Lot 11 of Pheasant Hollow 7th edition, which was platted in 2020. The whole idea here, or the proposal, is to vacate the hashed area on your screen, which is the portion of existing 60-foot sanitary sewer easement. And just to give a background, as per the plat, which was approved in 2020, there are 2 easements. So one is an existing 60-foot wide easement that is, you can see on, I think it's highlighted in purple, and which is an existing easement. And on top of it, there's a 40 feet sanitary sewer and utility easement. So there are 2 easements which are on top of each other. So the idea is to vacate just the hashed area of the existing easement. So that's the request. To give an analysis, the red hashed area which is requested to be vacated, and as per city's engineering office confirms that the 40 feet easement that we have is enough to maintain the services and operate any services. And you can see a small section of the sanitary sewer, which is highlighted in a green color. This is where the depth, this is how deep the sanitary sewer runs through the property. So it would be more than enough and sufficient to service. So with that, staff also notes that all other easements as identified in yellow will be retained as is. With that, staff also makes a technical comment about making sure that all the legal paperwork for the easement vacation must note that all other easements of record shall be retained as is. And with that, city staff makes recommendation to approve this vacation with any comments and direction from Planning and Zoning Commission, and confirming to city staff recommendation and technical requirements. I believe applicant's engineer is here. If not, I'm happy to answer any questions on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there someone from the applicant that would like to speak? I see a taker. Name and address, please.
Travis Stewart, 2317 Richard Road, Cedar Falls. I don't have really much to add other than what you said. This was from a previous subdivision. It was 60 feet wide. We just don't need that much width for the depth that it's at, and so the developer had requested that we minimize that easement so that the property would be more useful.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bring that back to commission. Any comments or discussion?
You might want to see if there's any general
Oh,
public.
thank you. Yes, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this? All right, how about I bring it back to the commission? And any questions, comments, motion?
I'll just I want to make maybe one, bring up one situation. I am working for the property owner to the south, but as I looked at this, I don't think I have a conflict of interest, but if anybody is worried about that, I would be happy to refrain from voting on this, but otherwise I don't believe I have a conflict of interest, but I did want to bring that to light in case anybody questioned that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. I would move the proposal forward.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Oh,
Looks like we might have a public
is it too
comment.
late for someone from the public to speak? Okay. Name and address, please.
My name is Steve Bridges, 3816 Trent Lane in Waterloo, and I am the property owner to the south, and I have no problem with what they're doing there, but I think there is a problem with the way it's described. It's talked about Lot 10 and part of Lot 11, and I think it's really Lot 11 and part of Lot 10 in some of the slides that were presented. I don't know if that makes any difference or not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But I have no problem with what's
Okay.
being asked to be done.
All right, thank you. Staff want to address that at all?
That's correct.
It is correct.
Yep, that's correct.
All right, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Saul,
Yes.
Moser,
Yes.
Lynch,
Yes.
Larson,
I,
Holst,
Aye.
Hartley,
Aye.
Grebevich.
Aye.
Chrisman.
Aye.
All voting aye.
Thanks for changing it up.
I was going to say, you
Different order.
switched it up.
I was trying to keep you on your toes.
Feels like a new meeting.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We have one more new business item to discuss. College Hill Neighborhood Overlay Design Review for a new garage.
Yes.
Who's taking this?
That would be me as
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the second case for tonight. This is in College Hill Design Overlay Zoning District, and it's one of the case that we saw a month back. I think this is the same property owner who owns building both the lots 1214 and 1222, 1224 West 20th Street, where a new duplex was approved a month back. So here the request is, so the petitioner is requesting that an existing garage which was on 1222-24 West 20th Street be moved to a newer location, which is the adjacent property to 1214 West 20th Street. So that's a request. The reason why we are reviewing this is basically this is in R3 zoning district and in College Hill Overlay zoning district. And any new construction of detached structure over 300 square feet in size is considered as a substantial improvement and which needs a planning and zoning commission and city council review. So that is one of the reasons why we are reviewing this. As I mentioned, the proposal is to add a garage which is 22 by 24 in size, about 14 feet high, and will be placed at 5 feet setback from the side property line and about 60 feet recess from the front line of the building. So that's the possible location of the new garage on a new lot. And about a couple of things, or the analysis of this is minimum on-site parking. I think for this one unit dwelling is two stall per dwelling unit. And however, currently the property has a driveway which is single wide at the property line, which extends up to double wide, and it meets the minimum requirement. However, the proposal would allow the applicant or the petitioner to park the cars in a covered location. The detached accessory structure regulations, that is another thing that we review, is basically if the garage is over 600 square, if it is under 600 square feet, then the required side yard setback and the rear yard setback is 2 feet. However, in this case, applicant is being more generous by putting 5 feet side yard setback and about 38 feet rear setback. And as per code, you're required to have minimum separation of 8 feet between the principal structure and the detached structure. However, here we would have about 28 feet. So here is some comments on building design. I have an image down here. So the garage to the right is the existing garage, which is red color sided, which will be moved to the newer location and will be re-sided with the same siding on the house at 1214 West 20th Street. The siding would be vinyl, which will match the existing siding on the principal structure. And roofing material would be shingles for now, as it is, and which will not be identical to the steel roof of the principal structure. However, owner plans to add that later when it's worn out. About architecture compatibility with surrounding, most of the houses in the neighborhood are colonial bungalow style architecture with mix of attached and detached structures. The garages on properties are either in line or recessed. I think the proposed detached structure would be similar to those surroundings, as it will be recessed from the principal structure. One more item that we look into it is the neighborhood character, as this is one of the city's oldest and most densely populated neighborhood, and which is why we look at the uniformity of building size, scale, wearing appearance, etc. in terms of neighborhood. And the proposed two-stall structure is similar in size and scale as compared to other detached structures in the neighborhood, so it should be okay. Couple of technical comments is about getting required permits like demo permit, building permits, floodplain development permit, and elevation certificate to execute the proposal on site. And I think the owner is aware about those, just making sure that's noted. And also all existing utilities are required to be disconnected before moving the garage to the new location. With that, staff recommends approval, subject to any comments and directions specified by Planning and Zoning Commission, and conforming to all city staff recommendations. Thank you. I believe homeowner is here if he wants to speak, and I'm available if any questions are.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is the applicant here and like to speak at all to this item? Come up and state your name and address, please, for the record.
Aaron Carlin, 5232 Metz Road. I guess, yeah, if you have any questions, I'm here. I would have, as JD said, we a month ago, we put in for the removal of a house and to build a duplex right next door to this. I guess I would have submitted this at the same time, but I didn't realize this would require this much goings-on just for a garage. It seems redundant, but anyway, I am here if you have any questions.
All right, thank you very much. All right, bring it back to the commission. Is there any question, comments, discussion, motion?
Looks pretty straightforward to me, and makes a lot of sense, so I'd move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Roll call vote, please.
All right, Saul,
Yes.
Moser,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Holst,
Aye.
Hartley,
Aye.
Gribovich,
Aye.
Chrisman.
Aye.
All right, that passes. All right, so that takes care of all the agenda items. Is there any commission updates?
I don't have anything for you tonight.
No commission updates, so I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, the same. Thank you.